The sun had just begun to rise over New York when Flight 762 prepared for takeoff. Passengers settled into their seats, cabin crew checked belts and overhead bins, and the usual airport announcements played. Among the travelers was a quiet woman named Emily Carter, dressed in simple jeans, a navy jacket, and carrying only a small backpack. She took her seat in economy, smiled politely at the elderly woman beside her, and placed her headphones around her neck. She looked like any normal traveler, calm, soft-spoken, and alone. No one could have imagined that she was once one of America's most feared and respected fighter pilots. The aircraft lined up on the runway and took off smoothly. The captain welcomed everyone on board the 6-hour flight to Los Angeles, and soon the plane reached cruising altitude. People relaxed, some slept, others watched movies or chatted. Emily opened a small notebook and quietly sketched clouds, something she enjoyed doing during flights. She seemed completely at peace, but deep inside she carried a past known only to a few. For years she had served in the U.S. Air Force and earned the legendary call sign Eagle One. A name fighter pilot spoke with admiration. An hour into the flight, the calm atmosphere shifted. The cabin lights flickered briefly, followed by a sudden announcement from the captain. His voice sounded steady, but there was tension underneath. He informed passengers that the aircraft was changing course due to unexpected airspace activity. People exchanged confused looks. Some pulled off their headphones, others sat up straight. A whisper of worry began spreading through the plane. Emily's eyes shifted toward the window. She sensed something was wrong. She had seen this kind of diversion before, and her instincts immediately sharpened. Outside, high above the clouds, 2 unidentified jets approached the commercial airliner. They were flying at a distance, but heading directly toward Flight 762. The pilots in the cockpit immediately notified air traffic control and requested military interception support. The cabin crew tried to maintain calm, offering reassuring smiles, but their stiff posture revealed the truth. Turbulence struck, and a baby started crying. People began praying softly or clutching armrests as fear built in the air. Emily stayed calm, her breathing steady. Years of combat training had prepared her for moments like this. Suddenly, the captain's voice returned, firmer now. He informed passengers that 2 U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptors were on their way to escort them as a precaution. Gasps spread across the cabin. Most passengers had only seen fighter jets in movies. The thought of them flying beside a commercial airplane made everyone realize the situation was serious. Emily glanced outside again and waited. Minutes felt like hours, tension rising with each passing second. A young man across the aisle muttered, "Why would the military need to escort us?" His question remained unanswered as the engines hummed through the silent cabin. Then, with a powerful roar that shook the windows, 2 F-22 Raptors appeared beside the plane, sleek, fast, and intimidating. Children pressed their faces to the glass, fascinated, while adults stared in fear. It wasn't normal to see combat aircraft this close. The F-22 signaled to the cockpit. The commercial pilots opened a secure communication channel. That's when something unexpected happened. The fighter pilot's voice came through with a message that left the crew stunned. The lead F-22 pilot requested to speak with a specific person who might be on board. "If the passenger known by the call sign Eagle One is present, we request immediate communication." The captain froze. He repeated the message to confirm. "Eagle One?" he whispered. The co-pilot shook his head. They looked at the cabin through the cockpit camera, confused. Who could a fighter pilot be asking for on a civilian flight? In the cabin, the flight attendants exchanged uneasy glances. Passengers murmured in confusion. "Eagle One? What does that mean?" an old man asked. Emily closed her notebook slowly. She had hoped this day would never come. She had left that life behind. But if the fighter pilots used her call sign, it meant the situation was far worse than anyone knew. Emily stood up calmly, surprising the older woman beside her. "Excuse me," she said gently. Her voice remained controlled, but there was a firmness in her tone that carried authority. She walked toward the front of the plane. The flight attendant stepped in her way, asking her to return to her seat, but Emily leaned in and whispered two words only they could hear. Two words that made their eyes widen in disbelief. "Eagle One." The attendant stepped aside immediately and rushed to inform the captain. Murmurs spread. Passengers watched in curiosity and shock. The cockpit door opened for her. The captain stared at her, puzzled. Emily introduced herself quietly and explained that she once served with the Air Force. When she mentioned her call sign, both pilots' jaws dropped. It was like meeting a living legend. The captain handed her the headset, unsure yet trusting her confidence. Emily put it on and spoke for the first time in years using her call sign. "This is Eagle One. Put me through to Raptor Lead." The moment she said it, the F-22 pilot responded instantly, his voice filled with shock and respect. "Ma'am, Eagle One, is that really you?" The cockpit felt frozen in time. The co-pilot looked at Emily like she was some kind of superhero. The captain whispered, "Who are you?" Emily didn't turn to him yet. She kept her eyes forward, focusing on the radio. Her calmness was unshakable. The F-22 pilot continued, "It's an honor, ma'am. None of us expected to hear your voice again." Emily replied professionally, as if she had never left the service. "Status report. What are we dealing with?" Her tone was sharp, controlled, and full of leadership. The pilots exchanged glances. She was speaking like the one in charge now. The lead F-22 briefed her quickly. Two foreign aircraft had entered U.S. airspace without clearance, flying dangerously close to the commercial route. Their intentions were unknown, and they ignored warnings. Emily listened with complete focus, analyzing the risk. She had seen this pattern before during her service, test missions by rival nations to measure American response time. The commercial pilots watched her carefully. This was no ordinary passenger. She knew military procedures, radio codes, and air combat strategy like second nature. Even after years away, she still carried the aura of a commander. When the communication ended, Emily removed the headset and exhaled slowly. She looked at the commercial pilots and explained the situation in simple language so they wouldn't panic. She assured them that the F-22s would keep the plane safe, but caution was necessary. The captain asked the question burning in his mind. "Why did they call you Eagle One?" Emily paused, her eyes reflecting memories of her past. "Because that's who I used to be," she answered softly. She didn't elaborate, she didn't boast. She simply stated a truth she had tried to leave behind, but the sky had just called her back. Emily remained in the cockpit as the situation grew more tense. The two unidentified jets were now flying closer to U.S. airspace boundaries, and one of the F-22 pilots warned that the foreign aircraft appeared to be testing response reactions. Emily knew this tactic too well. It was a strategy used by foreign militaries to gauge how quickly America would defend its skies. The commercial pilots listened with worry as Emily analyzed every detail. Though she had left the Air Force years ago, the instincts, the sharpness, and the authority in her voice returned with full force. She was back in command, whether she wanted it or not. The F-22 pilot, still stunned to be speaking with the legendary Eagle One, requested her guidance. Emily leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. She asked for speed data, altitude, heading, and comms response from the unidentified planes. The Raptors provided the info immediately. Emily processed it quickly. She instructed the F-22s to maintain escort position but avoid aggressive maneuvers, ensuring that the foreign jets could not claim provocation. The commercial captain watched her as she effortlessly issued military-level commands with precision. It was like watching a general lead a mission. "You trained them well," the co-pilot whispered, almost in awe. Emily continued issuing calm but firm instructions. "Shadow them, but do not engage. Force them to alter course by presence, not confrontation. The F-22 pilots followed without hesitation. They shifted into a formation that blocked the intruder's path without initiating conflict. The move was brilliant, defensive, strategic, and non-escalatory. The foreign jets, realizing they were up against one of the most respected U.S. Air Force tacticians, began to veer off. Emily's voice remained steady as she guided the Raptors through each maneuver. The commercial aircraft passengers remained unaware of how close they had come to danger. Emily ensured they did not panic unnecessarily. After several tense minutes, the radar indicated that the unidentified jets were turning away. The F-22s confirmed that the threat was retreating toward international airspace. The entire cockpit breathed a sigh of relief, but Emily stayed composed. She knew the incident was a message, not an accident. Rival nations wanted the U.S. to know they had eyes in the sky. When the Raptors signaled clear skies, Emily finally removed the headset. Her hands were steady, but there was a heaviness in her heart. The Air Force world she had left behind had found her again at 30,000 feet. The captain stared at her, both grateful and overwhelmed. "You just saved us," he said softly. Emily shook her head. "The F-22s did their job. I only guided, but the pilots disagreed. Her guidance had prevented what could have become an international aerial standoff." Emily thanked them for trusting her and prepared to return to the cabin. Before she left, the co-pilot asked what everyone wanted to know. "Why did you leave the Air Force?" Emily paused. Her eyes reflected a painful memory. "I lost a wingman during a mission. I promised I'd never fly again." With that, she opened the cockpit door. As Emily walked back to her seat, the passengers looked at her with curious eyes. They had seen her enter the cockpit, and the plane had noticeably stabilized afterward. Little girl tugged her sleeve. "Miss, did you fix the plane?" Emily smiled gently and knelt down. "It wasn't broken. It just needed someone to talk to the right people." The girl beamed. The elderly woman who sat beside Emily earlier held her hand. "You have a strong spirit," she whispered, sensing something extraordinary about her. Emily simply smiled and sat back down, wishing to remain anonymous again. But silence didn't last long. A soft chime rang, and the captain made an announcement. His voice was steady yet emotional. He thanked the passengers for staying calm, and then he said something unexpected. "We would also like to extend our gratitude to a very special passenger, someone who helped protect this flight today. She served this country with honor. To the passenger known as Eagle One, thank you." The cabin erupted into applause. People turned to look at Emily, admiration glowing in their eyes. Some filmed the moment, not knowing who she truly was, but sensing they were in the presence of greatness. Emily felt uncomfortable with praise. She hadn't come for attention. She looked down modestly, but she gave a small nod to acknowledge the passengers' gratitude. As the flight continued safely, children came to her for autographs, teenagers asked if she was a real pilot, and adults shook her hand with heartfelt thanks. Emily kept her answers simple, humble, never boasting about her past. Her goal had always been service, not fame, and today had reminded her why she once loved flying, not for war, but to protect lives. As the aircraft approached Los Angeles, the sky turned golden with the setting sun. The F-22s remained beside them, escorting the passenger plane with a protective formation. It was a majestic sight, 2 fighter jets flying with honor for a hero who once led them. Moments before landing, the lead Raptor pilot radioed one last time. Emily was invited back to the cockpit to listen. "Eagle One," he said with pride, "it was an honor flying with you again. The skies missed you." Emily's eyes softened. She replied, "And I missed them." The Raptors tilted their wings in a final salute and soared upward as the plane descended. After landing, the passengers waited near the gate, hoping to talk to her once more. But Emily preferred to slip away quietly. She picked up her small backpack, thanked the crew, and walked toward the exit with calm grace. Before leaving, the captain stopped her. "If the Air Force ever needs you again, will you go back?" Emily looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "If the skies call me, I'll answer." Then she walked away, disappearing into the crowd. leaving behind a story those 180 passengers would tell for the rest of their lives. That night, news channels quietly reported an unidentified airspace incident that was handled professionally. No names were mentioned, no credit was given, and Emily preferred it that way. She didn't need the world to know, because heroes don't act for applause, they act because it's right. But somewhere far above the clouds, in the hearts of those F-22 pilots, a legend had returned. The call sign Eagle One was alive again, and if the skies ever needed her, she would rise, not as a passenger but as the guardian of the sky.